Live from WTOC, the Southeast news leader. The News Now starts on WTOC Plus.
Well, we start with breaking news here on WTOC Plus. Cornelius Radford, the soldier accused of carrying out a mass shooting on Fort Stewart in August, has just entered a plea of not guilty. That came during an appearance in front of a military judge this afternoon. Radford has been charged with counts including attempted murder and assault and was arraigned in front of that military judge. Now, the Associated Press is reporting the arraignment comes a week after Army prosecutors referred Radford's case to a general court-martial, which handles serious crimes under military law. Radford is accused of shooting 5 fellow soldiers on Fort Stewart, as well as shooting a 6th person. All of those soldiers were assigned to the 2nd Armored Brigade Combat Team of the 3rd ID. Radford has been held in pretrial confinement at the Naval Consolidated Brig Charleston since his last court appearance, which was just days after the shooting. A trial date has just been set for June 15th of 2026. Well, this is also just into our newsroom. The Coast Guard Search and Rescue just confirmed they found a body near Blackbeard and Sapelo Islands. Officials cannot confirm the individual's identity, but we do know the names of 2 men who they were searching for overnight are John Strickland and Roman Waldera. The body was transferred to the local coroner's office for further investigation and identification, and we will keep you updated as this story develops. Well, happening now, a jury's deliberating in the murder trial of Charles Teeple. Prosecutors say Teeple punched a Savannah resident named Bruce Helmley, who fell into a coma shortly after and died days later. That came on New Year's Eve of 2019. Closing arguments just wrapped up in the last hour with the prosecution fighting for convictions on 4 charges. Those include aggravated assault, exploitation, and intimidation of an elderly person, with separate felony murder charges attached to both of those. Now, the defense claimed that logic used by prosecution involved inferring that the punch caused Helmley's death. The prosecution used statements from the doctor who provided the autopsy that say his cause of death was from an assault. Both sides agreed that the punch happened, but the jury will decide whether Helmley's death was the direct result of that punch or whether he could have died due to other medical issues. We will bring you the verdict as soon as we get it. And in state news, a former UGA wide receiver will spend the rest of his life in prison for killing a gas station attendant outside of Athens. An Oconee County jury found Akil Crumpton guilty of murder in the 2021 shooting of 23-year-old Elijah Wood at a racetrack in Watkinsville. Crumpton is already serving 30 years on a federal conviction related to that case. Well, the site of a popular TV show is now the site of a death investigation today after a young woman died at Emory's Briarcliff campus. The abandoned hospital in Middle Georgia was featured in the series Stranger Things. Police say because of the show's popularity, this has been a popular site for fans to come and visit, despite no trespassing signs across the property. The abandoned building's address is widely available on the internet as one of the stops across Atlanta and Georgia for fans who want to see spots where the show was filmed. In the show, the building is known as Hawkins Lab and was widely featured in seasons 1 and 2. But the building, now also the site of the death investigation, is actually part of Emory's campus. We still have a lot of questions surrounding this death, including whether foul play was involved and how many people, if any, were with this young woman, who we now know was 19 years old. All right, well, we just got this into our newsroom at 1:05, truly less than a minute ago. This is a story we've been following over the last couple days here on WTOC. We now know that the PSC, the Public Service Commission, has unanimously voted to approve Georgia Power's data center plan with during a meeting that was held throughout the morning this afternoon. Again, the PSC just voted on this plan. It would add 10 megawatts to Georgia's power supply, which critics have said can massively impact utility bills. Again, that Public Service Commission had a public testimony earlier this afternoon, hearing from residents, businesses, and organizations. Again, that Georgia Power will now be allowed to generate 10 gigawatts of new electricity to serve the state's rapidly expanding data center industry. Under a stipulated agreement, Georgia Power says it will take on any financial risk from that plan. Georgia Power also says the projected revenue from data center energy usage will save customers roughly $9 a month between 2029 and 2031. However, many people have said there needs to be more transparency and protections in place for customers. So far, we've heard from folks both for and against that plan.
I highly, highly recommend y'all think about what this means for our communities, right? We have seen the research that data centers are not good for our communities. And if we're being very transparent, it's going to affect people who look like me. It's going to affect people who are poor, people who are at a disadvantage.
The truth is the future of our economy and even the health of our democracy, I would argue, runs on data centers and artificial intelligence. And someone's data centers will power that in the future.
Again, the PSC did just approve that plan. We got news into our word into our newsroom less than 5 minutes ago, so we're learning this as you are. And it's interesting because there's been a lot of hot debate around this topic here locally, as well as Port Wentworth City Council approved an amendment to regulate data centers within city limits just last night. However, some people are saying the city of Port Wentworth is moving too quickly. It was a very hot topic of discussion for the city last night during their council meeting. The city says they want to get ahead and set boundaries if data companies settle in the area. People do say they're concerned because water usage, noise disruption, traffic, and taxes could go up with the adoption of data centers.
There's nobody that comes up and says, yes, I want it, it's a great idea, and you wonder why.
This name does not mean hearing concerns and then rushing to rewrite policy behind closed doors.
Without the proper factual information on how much revenue it's going to generate for Port Wentworth, it's all skeptical, right?
Right now, the city says they are not in contact with any specific data centers. However, city leaders say data corporations are already looking at sites across both Chatham and Effingham counties. In national news, President Donald Trump just signaled a major shift in federal drug policy. He signed an executive order yesterday that may reclassify marijuana as a less dangerous drug. It could open up doors to new medical research. Right now, it's considered a Schedule I drug like heroin and LSD. However, Trump's order would change it to a Schedule III drug like ketamine and anabolic steroids. It's a move that Republicans are skeptical of, but Democrats largely support. Now, Trump's executive order, however, does not change Georgia law. Right now, people can get low THC oil strictly for medical use as long as they have one of the qualified diseases permitted for this kind of treatment plan. However, the executive director of Georgians for Responsible Marijuana Policy says Trump's order is not about legalizing marijuana, just doing more research.
So there's a lot of research that says it has benefits and a lot that say it has harms. And we need to dive into those much more before we rapidly expand medical marijuana access. And this research will be able to allow us to dig deeper into the real benefits and harms of marijuana.
Trump says he also wants to work with Congress so seniors can use CBD products they find beneficial for pain. Well, we're continuing our year in review here on WTOC Plus. Earlier in the week, we looked at the top international and health headlines for 2025, and now we're turning our attention to the top national stories, where 2025 got off to a tragic start with a deadly New Year's terror attack in New Orleans. Just about a week later, catastrophic wildfires devastated Los Angeles. And as Bradley Blackburn reports, that was only the start of news stories that made national headlines this year.
Deadly flash flooding in central Texas killed more than 130 people in July, including 27 young campers and counselors at an all-girls Christian camp.
When I think about the trauma and fear that our girls endured, it makes me physically ill.
Wildfires in Los Angeles and neighboring areas burned for weeks in January, causing dozens of deaths and massive destruction.
We never imagined something like this happening, wiping out our entire community.
Wildfires during the summer destroyed historic buildings at the Grand Canyon.
Let's roll,
A pickup truck plowed into a crowd of revelers in New Orleans on New Year's Day, killing 14 people in what the FBI said was a deadly terror attack committed by an Army veteran.
He was 100% inspired by ISIS.
A gunman opened fire at a Midtown Manhattan office building where the NFL is headquartered, killing 4, including a police officer. 2 Catholic school children were killed in a shooting at their church in Minneapolis.
Calls from Brown University, they're reporting an active shooter.
2 Brown University students were shot and killed in a classroom during final exams. A young couple who worked for the Israeli embassy was gunned down leaving the Capital Jewish Museum, and an Egyptian national firebombed a pro-Israel demonstration in Boulder, Colorado.
Also, a helicopter and the plane crashed in the river.
In January, a U.S. Army Black Hawk helicopter and American Eagle regional jet collided over the Potomac River near Reagan National Airport, killing 67 people. In November, a UPS cargo plane crashed shortly after takeoff in Louisville, Kentucky, killing 14. 10 inmates who escaped from the Orleans Parish Prison were all eventually recaptured after months on the run. Brian Koberger accepted a plea deal in exchange for life in prison for the 2022 murders of 4 University of Idaho students.
You're a delusional, pathetic, hypochondriac loser.
Music mogul Sean Diddy Combs was sentenced to 50 months behind bars after being convicted of prostitution charges, but he was acquitted of more serious charges, including racketeering, conspiracy, and sex trafficking.
These defendants...
The FBI announced the arrests of dozens of people, including current NBA players and a coach, in connection to investigations into alleged betting and poker schemes. It took him 11 years, but Rory McIlroy finally completed golf's Grand Slam when he won the Masters in April, becoming only the 6th player to do it. In hockey, the Washington Capitals' Alex Ovechkin broke Wayne Gretzky's NHL record for most career goals scored.
Splashdown, Crew 9 back on Earth.
Astronauts Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams finally made it home after their 8-day mission in space turned into 9 months. And finally, Dictionary.com's word of the year is 6'7". It doesn't seem to mean anything, but that didn't stop kids and teens from making it 2025's viral sensation. Bradley Blackburn, CBS News, New York.
Well, back here at home, a Savannah staple has returned to its full glory. The city celebrated the pouring of water at Forsyth Fountain with a brief ceremony in front of the fountain this morning. Back in June, crews removed the landmark and took it to Alabama for restoration. The fountain returned to the hostess city in September, marking the beginning of the reinstallation process. For months, residents and visitors have walked by the heart of the park, waiting for the water to start spouting once again. City leaders said it was their goal to have it fully operational before St. Patrick's Day, one of Savannah's biggest celebrations of the year. Crews turned the water on less than a week before Christmas, and people gathered around this morning to see the bright and beautiful fountain. Santa and Mrs. Claus even took photos with families in front of the landmark to celebrate the season, as well as this major occasion. All right, and finally, as Santa gears up for his biggest night, we saw him a second ago in front of the fountain. America's armed forces are also bracing for a busy Christmas Eve. Each year, Air and Space Force teams handle thousands of calls from children wanting an update on the reindeer's route. Gwen Bumgarner shares the history of the NORAD Santa Tracker. Take a look.
The mission at Colorado Springs Peterson Space Force Base doesn't stop for the holidays.
24/7, 365 days a year, we're monitoring the skies of North America for any airborne threats.
And when Santa makes his annual trek, Colonel Jason White says they have the equipment to keep tabs on his journey.
We use ground-based radars, satellites, airborne military aircraft.
Crews even rely on infrared sensors to monitor Rudolph's iconic nose. The information from the North American Aerospace Defense Command is quickly declassified, allowing any child who calls the NORAD Santa Tracker hotline to find out Kris Kringle's next stop.
Merry Christmas.
The very first call came in 70 years ago after a newspaper misprinted Santa's phone number in this advertisement. The number actually belonged to an Air Force Operations Center.
The individual that answered that phone didn't want to disappoint the child on the other end and just went with it. And then it was turned into an annual reoccurring Track Santa operation ever since.
The tradition lives on through dozens of volunteers answering phones on Christmas Eve, delivering Santa updates with military precision to tens of thousands of callers.
They logged 380,000 calls last Christmas Eve, and then several million social media engagements, 32 million website views in that one day.
In recent years, the operation has expanded with an online Santa tracker and website translations in 9 languages, allowing even more children to take part in the holiday cheer. Gwen Baumgartner, CBS News, Los Angeles.
Pretty cool right there. Hard to believe we're now less than 1 week away until Christmas. I know all of us here at WTOC are on the Christmas countdown. All right, and with that, we are going to wrap things up here for the news on WTOC Plus. We appreciate you spending part of your afternoon with us. We'll be back in less than 15 minutes for the First Alert Weather Show with Dave Turley. He'll be talking about how the skies are looking, especially with this weekend being one of the busiest travel weekends of the year. A lot of people both driving and flying. I heard the Savannah Hilton Head Airport's expecting 80,000 people just alone during this holiday travel period. So Dave will be joining us with an update on your forecast. And in the meantime, for your latest stories and headlines, you can always head on over to our website at WTOC.com. Thanks for watching, and for the next about 10 minutes, here's Local News Live.